Hello guys, Ryan from Arlington, Massachusetts, Husky Moving. We are a full service moving company, residential, commercial. I got my pitbull with me here too, Ghosty, who apparently wants to be in the video. She's all amped up, she just woke up. We do residential, commercial moving, we do assembly, we do handyman, we do disposal, we do some light yard work, we do some light plumbing. This morning I moved a couple's extra stuff from their home to their storage unit so they could have their house a little bit more organized because they're putting it on the market this week. So they're doing some showings. This afternoon, doing a job where we are moving furniture away from walls because they have painters coming in. So typically what that means is we're going to pull the furniture off the wall, stack it up in the middle of the room, give the painters plenty of room around the walls to work. The other thing I got to do on this job, there's a couple of handyman type things I got to do, one of which is remove a mirror, a glass mirror that's been put on a wall with construction adhesive. Hopefully, we're able to get that off, get the walls relatively smooth for the painters, blah, blah, blah. That's probably going to be a little bit more of a challenge than these people realize just because that construction adhesive can be brutal. But we will find out. Anyway, what I want to talk to you guys about today is packing. My thoughts on packing. I have a lot of them. It's, without sounding completely arrogant, I know I'm really good at it. It's one of my strong suits. Spatial recognition in terms of going into a house and figuring out how many or what size storage unit you're gonna need is not my strong suit. I'm not good at it at all. But if you give me a fixed volume of stuff and you give me a fixed space, I put myself up against anyone on the planet on maximizing space and efficiency. And there's some keys to being able to do that. Like everything in life, most of them come down to, it has nothing to do with your ability to pack per se. It has everything to do with your willingness to stop what you're doing, be patient, and do what needs to be done in the order it needs to be done in. And that's where people go wrong. Like anything that's challenging on this planet where human beings tend to go wrong is their inability to just stop, ask themselves if they're doing things in the right order, the correct order, and if not, their willingness to backtrack and just say, I need to do things a little bit differently. That's packing in a nutshell right there. That's all it is. Patience, really, is what it is. Having said that, there's a bunch of different things that you need to keep your mind on while you're doing this. And I'm going to talk about the way that I do things and why I do them. I do them counterintuitive to the way that most people wind up doing them, and I understand why most people do it the way that they do it. So whenever you look at someone's pack job, more often than not, especially if they don't work for a moving company, if they're just a person who just happens to pack something because they like packing their own storage unit or they're packing their own pod, more often than not, when you go in there, it's a complete shit show. It's just a disaster. People tend to just walk in, throw things down on the floor, and then not give it any thought whatsoever, and then wonder why their entire storage pod is filled to the back, but it only goes 2 feet up in the air, because they just started throwing stuff in there. They didn't give it any thought. They didn't give any thought to like how you maximize weight distribution and what you want to put on top of other things and whatever. And again, I get it. I do this every day, so for me it's nothing, but for these people it's challenging. But there's some things to keep in mind. So human nature is always going to dictate that you're going to want to do whatever is easiest for you first. That's worst case scenario in the moving business, and specifically when you're doing packing. You need to fight that urge. What's easiest for you is going to be what's easiest for 99.9% of the population, which is to go in and grab everything that looks like a rectangle, i.e. a box, and bring it out to the pod and go floor to ceiling, boxes on top of boxes, because it's the easiest thing to possibly do. The hardest thing for you to do is going to be to go in your garage and grab the rakes and the shovels and the windshield wiper fluid and the snowblower, and then go into your basement and grab the tennis racks and the old lights that you haven't used in 5 years, the paintings, the tools that are mismatched and misshaped. That's the hardest thing to do, and that's why people always wait to the end to do that stuff. The problem is, if you wait to the end to do that stuff, you wind up with 1,000 different things that are mismatched and hard to pack. My theory in packing is always do the opposite of what you want to do. So what you want to do is go grab the boxes because it's the easiest. Don't do that. You want to start with the hardest stuff first and work your way backwards. So if there's a big ass armchair that's going to be hard to pack, get that out of the way quickly. If there's a 20-foot ladder you need to get in there, get that out of the way quickly. Get it in and work around it. Don't wait to the end. If there's like, what else? Like a snowblower. Is there a way that you can figure out to get that in the front of the load rather than the back of the load? If you have bikes are hard to pack around for obvious reasons. Can you get that out of the way in the front? Meaning like do a stack and then leave yourself 4 feet of space at the top and then put the bikes in there and then put some cushions around it somehow. Can you get that out of the way? If you can avoid doing boxes floor to ceiling, which is what most people are going to do, you're going to save yourself a lot of trouble in the back end. So what people typically want to do is because they're all gung-ho and they've decided they're ready to go, blah, blah, blah. They want to fire stuff out to the pod as quickly as humanly possible and stack it up as quickly as humanly possible and avoid all the hard stuff until the very end. But what winds up happening is a job that should take 3 hours winds up taking 5 hours because you didn't do everything in the steps you needed to do them in to maximize efficiency. Now, every home improvement project you're ever going to do on the planet, if you've done even one, you understand that in any given situation, there's a fixed number of steps you have to do, and you have to do them in order. If you don't do them in order and you want to cut corners because you're impatient, there's going to be ramifications for that impatience down the line. Usually what that looks like is you'll get something done in the short term quickly, but you're going to have to redo it over again in, 2 years or something. Like if you don't, for example, if you don't prime a paint job properly and you slap the paint up there, you feel good about yourself because you slap the paint up there and it looks good today. But 6 months from now, when it doesn't look good anymore, you're going to have to wind up doing it all over again. So you didn't actually save any time. You actually cost yourself a lot of time. And that's what something I want to keep in mind. Oftentimes on our jobs, it feels like to the customer and sometimes even to my coworkers, it feels like we're going slower than we should be. But the reason we're going slower than we should be, or the way that they think we should be, is because they have an idea in their head of how quickly things should be going with the understanding that we're going to just fire boxes out into the pod. Sometimes what people don't understand is what I just mentioned, which is you can't just do that and then hope for the best at the end. It doesn't work that way. If you want to maximize efficiency, you need to get all that really hard to deal with shit in your house. You have to deal with it at some point. So you got to deal with it either now or later. But if you deal with it later, I can guarantee you it's going to be more difficult to deal with, not less difficult to deal with. So we try to mix all that really hard shit that nobody wants to deal with. I want to get it in the pod or the truck as quick as humanly possible. So on our truck, we have a peak, a grandma's attic, some people call it. But it's that space above the cab that gives you additional square footage. That to me is a great space because there's like 4 feet of space above the cab. Because there's only 4 feet and not floor to ceiling in the entire truck, you can put heavier book boxes up there. The first thing I usually do is I take advantage of that space I'll go grab every dining room chair. I'll marry them in, which for people who are not in the industry, marrying something in, what it means is you take two items that are exactly the same and you turn them sideways, called marrying them. There's actually a better term for it, like a sexual term that would make more sense. 69. Take two items, turn them so that they fit in together perfectly. We call it marrying two items. So I tend to do that with 2 armchairs. So I'll take 2 armchairs, put it on the left side of the truck, 2 armchairs, put it on the right side of the truck, fill in the middle gap with like boxes or book bags if there's awkward stuff. And then this is another point I want to take advantage of. So when you have dining room chairs, there's going to be gaps in between the legs. You want to take advantage of that space. Any negative space on the truck or in the pod, you want to take advantage of. Oftentimes, you'll see people throw shit up there and then not take advantage of I don't know how many square foot are in between a typical dining room leg, but let's just call it 1.5 square feet in between the recess of the dining room legs. That's all space you should be taking advantage of and using. Now, that one space in that dining room chair, if you leave it alone and don't put anything in there, not a huge deal. But if you take that mentality and extrapolate it over the entire pod or truck, obviously, if every time there's a negative space you fill it versus every time there's a negative space you don't, you're going to have 2 completely different pack jobs if you if you're using that theory over the entire truck or pod, obviously. I'm trying to think of a word. I can't think of it right now because I'm tired. But you got to use all that negative space. The other thing that we do to maximize efficiency when we're doing our packs, and you don't always have to do it, it's a case-by-case basis, but like I did a video of a job recently where I had to pack a pod that was going to California. They only wanted to pay for one pod because it was going to be expensive. It was like, I don't remember what it was like $5,000 a pod or something like that. So they didn't want to purchase a second pod and pay an additional $5,000 if they didn't want to. Now they wanted to get an entire 2-bedroom house and it was a house. It wasn't like an apartment. It was like a house, 2-bedroom house into one pod. And it was a one-shot deal. Like it wasn't going like around the corner. It's going to California. So we have one shot at this. We have to do it right, or we cost the customer an additional $5,000. So my thing is, if it's physically possible to get your items in there, I will figure out how to get them in there. If it's physically impossible, meaning you just have more square footage than the pod will allow, there's nothing I can do about that. There's literally nothing I can do. That's not a thing. But if it's possible that I can break stuff down, make all the decisions, proper decisions, pack it properly, take advantage of every available inch of negative space, then I'm going to be able to get it done for you. Now, we were able to get it done for them. We fit our whole house in the pod, but what we had to do was there was a tremendous amount of times where we had to stop what we were doing. Is there a way to make this item smaller and more packable? Yes, there is. Am I willing to stop what I'm doing and do what needs to be done to ensure that everything gets in this pod? Yes or no? You're going to, on any given job, you're going to have that question come to you a bunch of times. And your ability to be successful at your job depends on your willingness to stop and say, I can do this better. It's easiest for me to pick this item up right now and just bring it out to the pod. It's way more difficult for me to break it down into 4 separate pieces. The 4 separate pieces are going to be significantly easier to pack, so that's what I have to do whether I like it or not. And that happens on literally every job. That's your success in a nutshell. Is, are you willing to make those decisions? Stop what you're doing. Rethink, can I do this better? Is it my job to be a professional and do this better? Yes or no? Okay, I'm going to do it. That's packing in a nutshell right there. What that looked like on that job was she had a tremendous amount of items in her house. Anything that could be taken apart, so like tabletops came off, legs came off of dining room tables, obviously, like this ring light that's sitting in front of me that's lighting my stupid face. If I'm looking at it right now, there's the light up top, there's the tripod, there's a little stick that comes off the side. Any of this stuff that could come off and come into individual pieces, what it allowed us to do was take advantage of all the recesses that they had in their furniture, dressers. Every drawer has another, let's call it, I don't know, 2 square feet of space inside the drawer. We took advantage of all that. We put small pictures in there. We put the children's shoes in there. We put little fragile items that had been packed. Food items, like boxed food items you can put in there. If you don't use that space, it's now gone forever, and you're handcuffing your ability to be successful, what they need to be done. You can put stuff underneath dressers. So I'm looking at my dresser that's in my room right now. There's a whole bunch of room on the bottom of the dresser. You can use that room that's sitting on the floor. You could put, for example, if you had pictures that would fit under there that had been bubble wrapped, you could put them under there. You could put shoes under there. You could put many dressers. You could fit shoe boxes underneath. If you lose that space, I'm looking at it right now, it's probably like 3 square feet right there that I'd be losing if I didn't use that. So you got to use all your negative space. Anything that's a hindrance size-wise, there's a couple things to keep track of. So for example, in any given scenario, when you're packing a pod or a truck, there's going to be a distance that you have available to you. In my moving truck, the box itself is 16 feet long roughly, and then the peak adds a couple more feet, let's call it 3.5 more feet that I have available to me. And that's important, usually not in the smaller items, but for example, if I show up to a job and they're like, oh, we got to fit a 20-foot ladder on the truck, then I know the first thing I have to do, literally the first thing, is get that 20-foot ladder, put it in my truck at the very front of the truck, I'm going to use bungee cords to tie it up because I don't want it on the ground because it's going to be difficult to pack on. So I'm going to tie it up to the top of the truck as high as I can get it and then work around it. You got to do that first. Obviously, you can't wait on that or else the whole pack is fucked. If they need a 20-foot ladder in the truck and you only got 20 feet, there is no waiting. You have to do it right now. You have to keep track of that stuff. The other thing you want to keep track of that people forget about is that the lift gate on the back of the truck, most trucks, not all trucks, most moving trucks, recesses up into the back of the truck. But what it means is on the top of the truck, the roll down feature is slightly below the top of the truck. So you lose, I don't know what it is. Let's call it maybe 6, 8 inches, something like that, of space whenever you have to roll up the thing, which is every job. So you lose that. So you need to keep that aware because if you have anything tall, if you have like a tall armoire or something, you need to get that in at the beginning of the load, not at the end of the load, which again seems like common sense, but a lot of times it's not common sense when you haven't done this before. You need to keep track of that stuff. Anything that's tall, mattresses, box springs, obviously, big armoires, which I kind of phasing out a little bit as we move more towards like smaller TVs. Big armoires used to be every job we did. There was a huge TV cabinet to house the TV. Not so much anymore, but we still see them a lot. Any kind of oddly tall furniture. What else would go on there for tall stuff? I don't know. That's all I can think of right now, but that's important. You got to keep track of that. If there's any bottlenecks whatsoever, you need to work with the bottlenecks first, not at the end of the job. The tendency is if it's annoying and you don't want to deal with it, the tendency is you want to deal with it at the end of the job, not at the beginning. If you had, for example, 7.5 feet of floor space from floor to ceiling where the liftgate was, and 8 feet where the liftgate was not, and you had an armoire that was 7 3/4 feet tall, obviously, whether you like it or not, you have to deal with it before you get to the liftgate. You have to. There's no other option. Even when, if, for example, if you're not used to doing this and you look at the armoire and you go, I don't want to do that, I'm scared of picking it up, which is every person on the planet when they see something that looks abnormally heavy and obnoxiously large, they don't want to deal with it. You have to deal with it, whether you like it or not. It just is what it is. You got to keep that in mind. You got to keep in mind pieces that need to be cared for especially well. So, for example, pianos, we tend to put those at the very back of the truck and try not to have anything around them if possible. If there's anything made out of glass, we don't want that put in the load itself. In a perfect world, assuming we have the ability to do so, we will put that at the back of the truck with nothing else around it. I don't want anything near it. I don't want anything that could fall into it, break the glass, anything at all. That's not always possible, but if it can be possible, you do what you have to do to make it possible. So oftentimes in our pack jobs, for example, if I know I have really fragile pieces I need to deal with at the end of the job, I will purposefully go floor to ceiling, and I mean floor to ceiling, and do what I need to do to get all the less fragile stuff in the front of the truck and strap down, so I have available space in the back of the truck where I can strap down a glass curio cabinet and have nothing else around it. Had I not done the floor to ceiling in the front of the truck and I just did like 3/4 high of the truck, I wouldn't have the ability to keep stuff off of the curio, and my chances of success would be less, obviously. Obviously, if something's super fragile or super important to the customer, that should be your 100% main focus. So for example, when you walk into a home, more often than not, a customer is going to verbalize to you what you need to do to be successful in their eyes. So for example, if I walk into someone's home and they say to me, listen, my grandmother passed down this curio cabinet. Can I ask you guys a favor? Can you just really take care of this thing? It means a lot to me. You got it right there. That's the focus of this entire move, that curio cabinet. That's what's going to make them happy or not happy. You have all the information you need to know now. Now, what do I got to do? Let's work backwards from that. That needs to be protected in the back of the truck. Nothing needs to be around it. We got to be super careful with it. We got to wrap the shit out of it. We got to make sure that they're comfortable with the wrap job that we've done on the piece. We got to make sure they're comfortable with how it is on the truck, right? We need to show them how it is on the truck, that there's nothing else around it. All this is common sense, right? What else do we need to do? We need to pack the shit of the front out of the truck so we can make sure that nothing is near that curio cabinet on the back of the truck, all right? These are all things to keep in mind. What else? I know I'm all over the place right now. There's a lot that goes into this pack jobs. People say to me all the time, they'll be like, hey, just throw it in the truck. And I'm like, you don't understand. It doesn't work that way. We have a fixed volume of shit in your house, and we have a much smaller bottleneck, which is my moving truck. Okay? It doesn't work that way. We don't just throw it in the truck. We can throw it in the truck, but we'll be taking 2 trips and we'll be very inefficient with your money. Or we can just throw it in the truck, but your shit's going to get broken. If you actually want this done correctly, efficiently, where nothing gets damaged, we're not throwing anything in the truck. We're doing this in a fixed, smart way. People are like, you're a psychopath. And I'm like, all right, that's fine. Anywho, this is my diagram, my dope diagram. It's going to be a little hard to see. Let me see if I can shut this light off and make this a little easier. So I did this in red, so hopefully you guys can see it, which I think in retrospect was a bad idea. It looks like it's harder to see. But anyway, here's what we got going on. So imagine the paper is the back wall of the truck or the pod, whatever. The way that we would typically do something in this, if we were starting out a pack job, and the goal is that you do as many layers as this as possible. We call it a tier. So this would be a long, see my finger? This is a long dresser. See how this got like 9 drawers? That's a long dresser. That goes on first because that's the heaviest, bulkiest item. It's going to support the most weight. So we'll put that in first. Then we'll put a tall dresser next to it. See how this is a dresser? It's got like 5 drawers. All right, and then on top of the long dresser, we're going to do a row of boxes, preferably like book boxes or something that's heavy. We'll get that out of the way there, book boxes. And then see these 2 things right here? It's hard to tell what this is, but these are 2 chairs. See these arms right here? Those are arms. I would put them against the wall of the truck or against the pod. And this is where your back would go in the chair. And then you see here, this is another chair right here. That's what I talk about when I say marrying them, or if it's easier for you to understand, 69ing. See how there's 2 chairs? I've done the same thing over here, right here. 2 chairs right there. So I try to get chairs out of the way as quickly as humanly possible because for me, they're hard to pack. I don't like to put them on the ground because I can't really pack shit on top of them. So I will do it that way. I'll like marry them on top of a row of boxes, this is what this is. These are boxes here, 2 chairs on top of them. And then in this negative space where my finger is, negative space, this would be like a big armchair here, negative space. And then down here, negative space, negative space. In between those areas, I would try to find something like a small box. I would try to find a pillow. I would try to find a couch cushion, maybe like a baseball helmet or a basketball, anything that's randomly sized that you can get out of the way. Another great thing to do to put in there would be if you could go in, break down a lamp, for example. You could take the base of a lamp, you could wrap it in a moving blanket, and then put it in there. Because now what you have is a naturally protected space. These legs are going to protect it. The legs on top of it are going to protect it. And now, if you've done this correctly, all you have on top of it for weight is couch cushions and pillows, which is virtually nothing. So there's no chance of anything falling down and breaking this lamp here. So theoretically, if you want to think this through, you could do like lamp, you could do a 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 lamp. And now you've got 5 bedrooms worth of lamps out of the way and done. These are all the chairs, the dining room chairs. Dining room chairs are out of the way and done. One of the awkward armchairs from the living room is now here and done. Now, you've got a whole bunch of stuff that's awkward and hard to deal with, out of the way. First tier of the truck. And then the goal would be that every one of these tiers, we do successively the next thing. We make this into a flat wall. So this should theoretically be as flat as possible. And then we bump it out and then we do the same thing. So maybe now we do the last dresser. And then we do, there's like, for example, a TV stand, and then we'll repeat. On top of the TV stand, we have a layer of book boxes. And then on top of that, we have like another armchair. And then on top of that, we have like, in between the armchair legs, we'll have like basketball and maybe a lamp and maybe some of the children's toys. And then on top of that, we'll have more children's toys because the children's toys are awkward and they're hard to pack and they tend to have shit everywhere. And then on the other side, so for example, we'll do, I think I said I had another dresser over there. We'll do a dresser, 1 layer of boxes. Maybe if they have for example, if they have like folding chairs for a beach, we'll put those on top of those. Because again, we want all the awkward shit we're trying to get out of the way ASAP. We don't want to just take boxes, boxes, boxes. It's going to make you feel good in the short term, but you're going to wind up with a shitload of awkward stuff at the end of the truck, which is not what you want. So we're going to do, for example, dresser, boxes, we'll do some beach chairs, and then maybe there's like a weird children's slide thing, an awkwardly shaped slide. Maybe we'll throw that up there. Maybe we'll throw a couch cushion in there in the awkwardly circular place on the slide. we'll, if there's a recess in the slide and the ladder part of the slide, maybe we'll go throw some softballs in there, or we'll go find something from the garage. Maybe they have hedge clippers that would fit in there. And then on top of that, maybe there's a tarp down in the basement that's like we can smush and fit in the top of that towards the top of the truck. But I hope what I'm trying to explain to you guys is you don't want to just worry about the boxes. The boxes are super easy in the beginning. You need to move the whole house. You can't just worry on the boxes. You need to worry about that tarp downstairs. You need to worry about that snowboard in the garage. You need to worry about that old lamp downstairs that they haven't used in 5 years. These are all things that need to get done, and they need to get done efficiently and as quickly as humanly possible, so that when you work your way backwards towards the end of the truck, you're not stuck with all of the shit at the end where you're just going, I don't know what to do with all this stuff, and then you got to make a second trip, right? The customer might not know that you could have done things differently, but you would know you could have done things differently, and you're going to wind up looking unprofessional, right? The most professional thing you can do is when someone comes up to you and goes, hey, I don't really understand, like, why are you doing this way? And you go, listen, I've done this, respectfully, I've done this 1,000 times before. We're going to get this awkward stuff out of the way now so we don't have to deal with the end of the truck. Just, you need to trust me right now. And this happens all the time. You're going to have this conversation with people. I just need you to put your trust in me right now. If this can be done, I am the guy to do it for you, but you need to trust me. And then they go away, and then you fucking do your job, and you get it all done. When everyone was like, I don't think it's going to fit in here, and you make it fit, okay? There are a lot more tips, but I'm going to cap it now for this. I've given you guys some things to think about. I think if you're new to the game, try to take this stuff in. The tendency is for you to want to be like, no, I got it covered. I know what I'm doing. I can almost guarantee you could be doing things better, because I see people pack all the time. All the time I watch people pack, and all the time I'm like, if it were me, I would be doing things differently. And then when it comes to the end of the pack, the things that I would have done differently are the things that handcuff the pack, meaning we got to take a second trip, or it doesn't all fit where we thought it should fit. Blah, blah, blah. So just be willing to take in some of these ideas, adopt them on your own pack jobs, and I think you guys will, if you keep practicing and doing this day after day after day, you're going to get really, really, really good, as long as you're willing to go against the human nature of I want to do what's easiest first. All right? I know this is a long video, guys. There were a lot of tips in here. I hope you guys found some knowledge in here. If you did, please like and subscribe. If you want to get a hold of me, my contact information is the back end of the video. Email address is there. info@huskymoving.com. Our website is huskymoving.com, and like and subscribe. Thank you, guys.